I saw him drink 7,000 calories worth of alcohol almost every night. He didn't want treatment at the time because he thought it would hurt his job as a wrestler. Oh my goodness. At 7 feet 4 inches and 520 pounds, WWE Hall of Famer Andre the Giant shocked everyone with how big he was. People even called him the eighth wonder of the world. He died in 1998 and left behind only one daughter. Since then, all eyes have been on her in the hopes that she will continue her father's work. A lot of kids whose parents are famous end up becoming famous themselves. And Robin Christensen Rousoff, Andre the Giant's daughter, was no different. People compared her to her dad because of how good she was at wrestling and how big she was. How big was Robin? Some people say she was bigger than her dad. Was that really the case? Stay put and find out. Andre was very big. Many people know him as Andre the Giant, but his real name is Andre René Rousimov. He was born in Coulommiers, France, on May 19, 1946. He was said to have weighed a huge 13 pounds when he was born, and he would only get bigger from now on. As a professional wrestler, Andre was often praised as being from Grenoble in the French Alps. However, he grew up in Molierne, a small town 40 miles east of Paris. He was the middle child of 5. Unlike Andre, none of his siblings seem to have had this growth spurt. However, many people think that his grandpa was taller than average. Some people had it easy from the start. It was the other way around for Andre. His family worked on farms to make money, but they barely had enough to live on. Even though Andre was very young when he first showed signs of being big, it was probably just thought to be a gene he got from his grandpa. Since he reached a height of 6 feet 3 inches when he was only 12, the signs could no longer be ignored. He kept getting taller after that. People who knew him well quickly realized that this wasn't normal and was actually quite strange, especially since he hadn't shown any signs of chemical imbalance as a child. When he turned 6, he started going to the neighborhood school and was excited to learn at first. Many people don't know this, but Andre was very smart. Math was even his favorite subject. Besides that, he was pretty good at sports and played goalie on the school soccer team. People who grew up with him even said it was almost impossible to get the ball past Andre, which isn't surprising since he was a solid 6-foot wall by the time he was 10. Andre's father eventually made him drop out of school because the family was having money problems. Once he knew what to do, he was able to do the work of 3 men on their family farm by himself. Andre thought this made sense because he had lost all interest in school and thought he would become a farmer, so he didn't need to go to school. Too bad for the farm, Andre quickly got tired of working on it too. He probably thought his strength could be put to better use elsewhere than tilling the ground. At this point, he started to talk about how he wanted to take on a bigger challenge in his life. He made the big move to Paris when he was 17. There, he met a wrestling manager who thought Andre would do well in professional wrestling. Andre agreed and signed the contract. This was the start of a career that made him one of the most famous fighters in the world. When Andre was younger, he would walk to and from school and sometimes hitch a ride with his neighbor, who turned out to be the famous writer Samuel Beckett. As it turned out, Samuel wouldn't have to worry about giving Andre rides for much longer. He quit school when he turned 14, which was the legal age at the time, and started working on the family farm. His family remembers that this is when things really stood out for him because he had grown to be almost 6 feet 6 inches by the time he turned 15. It wasn't until many years later that they discovered Andre had acromegaly, a hormonal problem in which the pituitary gland makes too much growth hormone. Giant size can happen in kids with this problem. When Andre hit a growth spurt at 14, he and everyone else started to notice. But he kept getting bigger, and in the end, his head, hands, feet, and stomach were all bigger. He wore a size 22 shoe, and a regular beer can look like a small padlock in his hands. Unfortunately, Andre had a hard time because he was big. Not only because he was constantly getting poked and stared at out of anger, but also because our world doesn't really make things for giants. Look around. Everything around us is made to fit people who are the size we think is normal. For example, back when telephone buttons were still common, Andre couldn't use his fingers to make calls, so he used a pencil instead. He was also a wrestler, which meant he had to travel about 300 days a year for work. However, he was so big that he couldn't fit in the flight bathroom, so he had to use a bucket all the time. Plus, driving was really hard for him unless he could use a car that was made to fit his needs and preferences. He told reporters that his back and neck always got so stiff after having to ride in the front seat of a car for several hundred miles. It was especially hard for him to grow up with acromegaly because he didn't know he had a problem at that point. As a child in France, doctors didn't tell him what was wrong, all he knew was that he was different. Many people think that he was first diagnosed with the disorder in Japan in 1970, but he was definitely told he had it after getting treatment for a broken ankle in 1981. There were already some tried and true ways to treat him at this point. It is thought that these treatments could have greatly increased his lifespan, even though they would not have stopped his growth. Still, Andre chose not to get treatment, even though it might have made him live longer. In the 2018 documentary Andre the Giant, his doctor was asked why Andre did what he did and said that he did it because he was afraid it would hurt his wrestling career. Andre's big body made him become famous around the world as a wrestler, which is why he chose to be one. You would have known who this big guy was if you liked wrestling in the 1970s and 1980s. It was impossible to miss him, and the fact that he was so much taller than everyone else made the games he played a little funnier. But even though Andre might have seemed a little off, he saw the good in his situation and stuck with it. Soon, he was the best wrestler in the world in the 1970s and 1980s. Andre became famous all over the world, made a lot of money, and finally had success in the movie business with the hit movie The Princess Bride. Andre finally fought Hulk Hogan in 1987's WrestleMania 3, which was one of the most anticipated events in wrestling history. He died in France 10 years later, when he was only 46 years old. How tall and heavy Andre is. It's not a surprise that Andre got a lot of unwanted attention in public. Since he is that big, everyone would want to see him. But Andre didn't agree. He thought that his personal relationships were suffering because people only seemed to connect with him because of his size. He said they were trying to take advantage of him, which he didn't like at all. One good thing about his size was that he could drink a lot. People even think he might be able to drink 100 beers or 20 bottles of wine for one time. Cary Elwes, who played Andre in The Princess Bride, said that he didn't drink just because he could because he was in a lot of pain all the time because other wrestlers broke things all over him and he had to take their weight. It was proven that Andre had acromegaly and was definitely very tall, but no one knows for sure how tall he is. During his wrestling career, he was often called the 7 feet 4 inches giant, but anyone who watches wrestling would think that this is probably exaggerated. On his French visa, it said that he was 1.8 meters tall, which is just under 7 feet 2 inches. A few people were not sure which height to choose. Then there were people who thought Andre might have been only 7 feet tall, or even 3 inches shorter. It's still a problem with his weight. He was said to weigh 520 pounds a lot of the time. Sources say his weight at the time of his death could have been anywhere from 380 pounds to 555 pounds, so it could just be a wrestling myth. Career in wrestling. Andre became famous when he said that he only used what God gave him to make a living. The fact that he was big really helped him take over the world of wrestling. It was his chance to shine, and he made the most of it. Andre began wrestling in France in 1966 under the name Jean Fear, which means, gentle giant. Afterwards, he went to box in Japan. He went by the name Monster Rousimov this time, and in 1971 he went to Quebec. After 2 years, people flocked to see Andre the Giant fight, and wrestling shows were packed to the brim. He met Vince McMahon and started working with him in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, which got its name from WWE. This is how it went. Andre first came to North America in 1971. He landed in Montreal and started wrestling there under the name Jean Fear. At the beginning of his time in Quebec, good crowds came to his games. But excitement faded in the end. Even though Andre liked the vibe of Quebec, he knew he needed to make a change. He set up a meeting with McMahon, a major figure in professional wrestling who was based in New York, through his friend Valwis. McMahon, a tall, handsome man in his 60s, says that his first opinion of Andre was that he was so big that he shocked him. McMahon says, "My first thought was, my God, I've never seen such a man." He went on to say that he had seen pictures and videos of Andre and knew that he was 7 feet 4 inches tall and over 400 pounds, but he wasn't ready for how he looked in person. McMahon had never seen anyone like him before, and he thought he had what it took to become the biggest star in wrestling, the Princess Bride. It's interesting that Andre had a bright future in movies. He was at least sure that he could always work in movies if he didn't do well in wrestling. Robert Reiner, who wrote the movie The Princess Bride, and William Goldman, who directed it, both agreed that Andre was the best person to play the giant Fezzik in that movie. Rob says they gave Andre a 3-page scene to read as a test. He couldn't understand a word the giant said, but they knew he had to be in their movie. Surely he still got the part, even though he didn't have much experience playing and couldn't even speak clearly. Impressively, Andre gave an absolutely stellar performance, which shows that he can entertain in many ways. Andre did a great job in the movie, but things were awful for him behind the scenes. He said it wasn't easy for him to make the movie, not because he had to remember lines, but because his back hurt so much while they were shooting. It was hard to do acts because of this, and when he couldn't catch actress Robin Wright in his arms, the crew had to use cables to hold her up. Plus, Andre had to be moved with cables because he was so big, which made things even worse when he had to ride a horse in a scene. But Andre had already done work as an actor before The Princess Bride. Before that, he was in a French movie in 1967, a TV show called $6 Million Man in 1976, The Fall Guy in 1982, and the movie Mickey and Ma in 1984. When Andre was done shooting The Princess Bride, he was asked to make a cameo appearance in the 1994 movie Trading Mom. But of all the parts he played, Fezzik seemed to be the one that best matched his real-life personality. Andre was so proud of his work that he would often take a recording of the movie with him and even liked showing it to other people. It's Gene Christensen. John Christensen was definitely an important part of Andre's life, but the full extent of their friendship may never be known. Everyone needs a little love in their life, whether it's from family, friends, or people they meet on the road. Andre had a lot of friends and supporters all over the world, but he needed a different kind of love. Andre was famous for his figure, his work in wrestling, and his roles in movies. But not much was known about his personal life, especially about his relationship with Gene Christensen. Gene Christensen Gantry was born in Minnesota on August 15, 1949. Her Danish roots were clear from her last name, which in Danish means knowledge, leadership, and fairness. Because her relationship with Andre made her so famous, she kept her home life very quiet. She may not have been an only child, though. Gin was more than just Andre's partner, even though her relationship with him was what made her famous. In the 1970s, she worked as a model and later as a public relations representative for WWE. She met Andre through this job. On their first meeting, both of them were honest about not being interested in each other. There wasn't a spark or anything like that right away. Jean was glad she met someone bigger than her because she was over 6 feet 4 inches tall. People think that this uniqueness may have played a big role in how they eventually became romantically involved. It's not clear how they ended up dating, but soon enough, rumors started to spread about them, and they had to deal with problems as a couple. A lot of sources say that Jean and Andre were seriously dating, but it's still not clear what kind of relationship they had. We think that they started dating around 1972 or 1973. Some sources say that they were married, but they never got to publicly register their marriage. The couple never applied for a marriage license, which puts an end to these rumors. But despite this, their relationship seemed to be strong and had been going on for years, through all the ups and downs that come with being in the public eye. Many people said that Jean and Andre's bond became stronger when their daughter Robin Christensen Rousimov was born, but it looked like their relationship was going through a rough patch at this time because It was said that he at first wouldn't admit that Robin was his daughter. A DNA test proved that the child was his daughter, and only then did he accept her as his. They could not have had anything good going for them without this happening. Robin didn't really get any extra attention even though his famous father had only one kid. It's hard to believe she's only seen her dad 5 times all her life. There was no doubt that their family relationships were very complicated. Anyway, Jean kept her private life very quiet while she was dating Andre, and she kept it that way even after they broke up. She died in 2008, which was sad, but she left behind a legacy that fans and scholars will always be interested in. It's interesting how their stories, which are connected but still separate, show what fame, love, and problems are like in the real world. Sad to say, Andre was about to enter a new era that would leave many people speechless for decades to come. Death. When someone looks so different from everyone else, they might be treated very well or very badly. It seemed like Andre lived most of his life stuck between these two fences. It seemed like he could never do anything wrong to some people. Some people thought he was an unbeatable fighter who was so big that not even death could hurt him. He died at the young age of 46, which was something that many people never thought would happen. Andre was found dead in a hotel room in France on January 28, 1993. He had congestive heart failure because he hadn't been treated for his acromegaly. It was said that Andre was in France to attend the funeral of his father and quickly visit his family. When he died, though, his plans went badly after all. Andre always meant for his body to be burned. He was taken back to the United States, where he was cremated and his ashes spread at his ranch in North Carolina. There was not a crematorium in France that was big enough for his body. People in the WWE Hall of Fame thought of him as a real wrestling giant, both in a physical and figurative sense. As one of the most famous and well-known stars in the business's history, he lived a life that not many people can claim. A lot of people say that he was a big part of how wrestling became a popular sport. Even though he was only alive for a short time, Andre's most famous movie scenes will live on forever. In this case, it was when everyone came to watch his famous WrestleMania 3 match. It's possible that this was the time when he became a fan favorite. To be honest, Andre getting body slammed by Hulk Hogan is one of the best moments in wrestling history. After he died, many wrestlers and co-stars in the entertainment business came out to honor him and send their regrets to his family, friends, and fans. Stephanie McMahon was one of these people. She said she was friends with Andre. She was friends with someone in WWE who wasn't very well known. Stephanie told everyone that Andre was her best friend from childhood and that she would go to his games and be there for all of his important times. During an interview with D Magazine, she said that they became close when she was 7 or 8 years old and saw how people in WWE treated Andre differently because he was big. Stephanie also said she didn't like how people treated him differently because he was big. And that's how they became close. She asked him one day if it bothered him. She thinks he was shocked that someone so little would ask him such a big question. That was the start of their relationship. Stephanie and other die-hard wrestling fans were shocked when Hulk Hogan famously body slammed the 8th wonder of the world at WrestleMania 3. One of the many high points of Andre the Giant's amazing career was this moment. Andre's little girl. Andre may not have lived long, but he left all of his land to his daughter Robin when he died, which was a good thing. Even though Andre and Jean were never married, they had Robin during a time when Andre's busy wrestling business kept him on the move, which made it hard for him to be in Jean's life. Because of these things, their relationship as co-parents was often tense. Robin would sometimes see her dad when he had wrestling events near Seattle when she was a kid, and they would talk on the phone. When Robin thinks about their friendship, she says she thinks they might have become closer if Andre had lived longer. Sadly, Robin and her mother didn't find out about his death until a month later, when his lawyer left a message on their answering machine. He had died in Paris in January 1993 of congestive heart failure. Even though they had problems in their relationship, which Robin confirmed, Andre left her the most money in his will. So it's not a surprise that Robin followed in her father's path and became a wrestler. She later moved on to acting. Even though, unlike her fathers, her career in wrestling didn't go the way she had hoped. She went on to try other things and eventually became an actress, all while working on projects connected to her father's legacy. Robin has been involved in a lot of big projects lately, like the movie Closer to Heaven based on the book Andre the Giant and the TV documentary Andre the Giant. It was her job to make sure that the documentary about his life and contributions to professional wrestling and entertainment was well done. Robin is thought to have a net worth of $10 million and is very wealthy. Thanks in part to her wrestling career and the income she keeps getting from WWE, which keeps using her name for different events. As expected, she owns the rights to use her dad's name in many different types of media, such as action toys and video games. In terms of his reputation, Andre was one of the best-paid wrestlers of all time, making a lot of money during his long and successful career. This wealth was split among 3 recipients, with Robin getting a big chunk of it along with the other 2 beneficiaries. People don't know much about Robin's personal life, just like her mother did. Information about her relationships and family life is kept secret. Instead of being in the spotlight, she tries to keep a low profile by focusing on her work and keeping her privacy. We know you're interested in how much Robin looks like her dad in terms of size. He didn't need a DNA test to be sure she was his daughter, though, because they look so much alike. Robin is 5 feet 11 inches tall, which is about 180 centimeters, weighs 220 pounds, which is 100 kilograms, and has a body size of 44 inches. So, Robin isn't as famous as either of her parents, but she has made her own way in the show business while honoring her dad's legacy. Her work on movies and documentaries about Andre the Giant shows how deeply she cares about his story, and her success in business shows how Andre's famous career has had a long effect on people. Robin now lives in Seattle, Washington, and has taken a much-needed break from wrestling. Anyway, we know that Andre the Giant is looking down at her no matter what she does. Even though he died a long time ago, his huge legacy goes on because Robin loves and cherishes his memory above all else. Which fight between Andre the Giant stood out to you the most? Write your answer in the box below.